Hey everyone, I'm back with another video. Today we're going to do a full walkthrough demo of the game room. It's a long overdue video. I've been meaning to do it for a long time, but I've been putting it off, and I'm going to do it now, and I'll explain why in a minute. Today is going to be the game room demo walkthrough day, and I've been asked about this for a while now. Now it's time to actually do it. Why? Because I'm moving and I have to do it now or never. I originally put it off because there's a lot of stuff in here that's still not finished, and I was telling myself that, oh, I'll finish it first and then I'll do the demo. Well, that never happened. But I will give you a full walkthrough of everything in here, at least generally. Maybe future videos I'll go into more detail on some of the items, but I'll give you a general overview of everything here, and also how this room was built. We're going to enter the game room, and here is my game room, and this is the main desk where I do my work, spend all my time, and play PC games and stream and whatever else that I feel like doing. Edit videos like this one. I'll give you the quick overview and then I'll go into more detail later. First off, stereo system there. This is all the AV control rack. This is a CRT TV. We've got consoles all in the cubby holes here, and that goes all the way over here and up to the ceiling. Down here there's some little additional stations that I use for my kids. They play games there. Coming over here, this is my Amiga. These are some extra PCs here. This is my vinyl collection and laser discs, RPG books, tons of storage for games here. Lots of games. There's even more that I can't fit here. This is just the stuff that I can fit on the shelving. I have a whole extra archive for additional games, but this is what I was able to fill. One of the things that I never really got to finish was this side of the room. Originally I wanted to have floor to ceiling shelving that went from that wall all the way to that wall, but never got to it. So I was able to just kind of piece together random shelving that I was able to get a hold of, and it works okay, but probably could be better. And then back here we've got speakers, and that's the door we came in through, and these speakers I've had forever. I found the top ones here on the side of the road. I've had these since high school. And yeah, so that's the general overview. It's not a big room, but it's got a lot of stuff jammed into it. And I'll do a little demo real quick of, I'll give you a demo of how everything works, and then I'll kind of go through, I'm not sure what order I'm going to do all this in, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how this room came to be. Alright, so I'll give you a quick overview of the console situation here. I'll start out down here with the one everyone knows and loves, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Not too much more to say about it, but it is there. This is the Sega Genesis Model 2 with the Sega CD Model 2, as well as a 32X and Mega EverDrive. There's a TurboGrafx 16 here. This is in a little bit of rough shape here. It was given to me in a non-working state. My buddy Kraz opened it up and was able to do some repairs on it and get it working. It does work, but the colors are a little off now. I think something that was repaired kind of probably needs to be resoldered or something. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to deal with it lately. So that's that. We've got the Super Nintendo, a little bit orange on top, but that's okay. And we got the Super Famicom there with Japanese Mario Kart. We've got the Sega Saturn here, and the Sega Dreamcast here. This is my original Sega Genesis that I've had since I was a kid. I added the power base converter on it because I didn't want to buy a whole new Master System console, so I just converted this. Basically what this does is turns it into a Master System. So instead of buying a standalone Master System with controllers and everything, I just did this. So this is basically a Master System now. Up here we've got Nintendo 64 with the EverDrive, also RAM expansion. GameCube with the Game Boy Advanced player here. Got some Wavebirds. And this is PlayStation 2. We got the Slim, and then we've also got a fat test version down here and a multi-tap. Honestly, the test version is not super useful. I do have some Japanese games that will play on it because its region unlocked on the test kit, but that's really about all it's good for. I'm not super big into the original Xbox. I prefer the 360 and the newer Xboxes, but I have original Xbox here. Hardly ever turn it on. Also have the test kit here. This isn't really good for very much other than just bragging rights, I guess. Down here, we've got, it's a little back behind the speaker, whoops. Here, we've got the Heavy Sixer, Atari 2600. We've got the Atari 800, which is my personal favorite Atari system. And we've got the disk drive, floppy disk drive, and tape drive, as well as a SD card reader for it as well. The SD reader has a housing that looks just like the disk drive, which is cool. This is from my dad. This is my first console ever that I've had since I was a kid. My dad used to work at Atari. He worked on quality stuff, and I believe he sourced some of the parts for that, for the disk drive. So I've been playing this my entire life, and it still works. It's built like a tank. Up here we've got the PS1 and the PS1 remake, I guess. I don't use this, as you can see, but it's there in case I ever wanted to. There's an old PC screen, a PVM RGB screen. We've got the Wii U. The black Wii is a stripped down version of the regular Wii. This will not play the GameCube games, but that doesn't matter because I have the GameCube right there. I've got two Switches. These are my kids. This is a 3DO. This is the FZ1. This is kind of the quintessential 3DO that everyone knows. Panasonic also made this one, the FZ10. I don't know what the difference is. I think this is probably a cost down version. It's probably it's got the pop open, which I think is probably cheaper and more reliable than the pop out tray. I'm not sure, but I have both of them just because. This is a Laserdisc player. I use this quite a bit. Cool thing about this one is it has auto reverse, which means you don't have to flip over the disc. The read head actually is on a track and it goes from the top to the bottom, so it can read either side. This is a spare mini disc player I have. This is a Super Betamax player and a Super VHS player. Over here we have PS4 Pro, we got a PS3, and down here we've got the Magnavox Odyssey, which is not that great, to be quite honest with you, but I got it at a thrift store. This is my Amiga 3000, which is probably one of the more harder to get out of all of these, and I've got the keyboard and mouse for it. This is the stereo system over here. I've got the 300 disc changer there, the receiver, dual tape deck. I've got the Sansui equalizer, and then this is my main mini disc. I also got a Blu-ray player I haven't hooked up yet. This is the PC. I've got a streaming and video editing PC over here. This is gaming PC. This is the extra PC that my son plays Minecraft and Roblox on because it's very old and that's about all it's good for. Promotional art from when I worked at EA. Yeah, that's about the extent of it. I'm editing this video on this machine right now. And this desk, as you might notice, is just a folding table. This was supposed to be a real desk. It was supposed to just be a plank of wood or something that goes across here, so I didn't have to have legs because it would be cleated around on the wall. But that never materialized, unfortunately. This is my capture station, so I capture old commercials off old Betamax tapes and put them on my retro landfill channel. And that's the extent of all the systems that I've got here. Quite a bit. These aren't all the systems that I own. These are just the ones I have hooked up. I have a few more test kits and, you know, weirdo machines. I've got a Bally Astrocade and a few other things, but they don't get much use. So I've got also some computer systems like an Atari ST and a Commodore 64 and things like that that are set up elsewhere. But these are the main consoles that I've got. Alright, so we're going to do a quick demo of how the switching system works in here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens going, and so this is excluding all the CRT screens. These are just LCD monitor types. So we've got the PlayStation 5 here, Xbox One Series X here, the Wii U here, and the Switch here. And then we've got Switch 1 and Switch 2 here. So this Switch is on both of these screens here and here at the same time. And we'll show you how that works. This is the HDMI matrix switch. And so we've got inputs up here and outputs here. This is 16 inputs. They're all full, and 8 outputs. These are also full. These are my 3 primary PC screens here. And then I've got labeled main LCD. That's this one. And then I've got 2 other screens for the kids. And then I've got one that goes to my stream, so I can stream whatever I want. So here's a quick demo. Say I want my PS5 to be on that screen. All I have to do is do this, PS5 middle screen, and voila, there it is. Let's say I want my Wii U to be on all three of the bottom screens. I can do that. Let's say I want the Xbox One X to be on the two side screens here. I can do that. Let's say I want Switch to be on every screen possible. Whoops. There's the Switch on all the screens at the same time. So that gives you a quick overview of how the HDMI switching matrix switch works. Okay, so here is the analog matrix switch. It's much bigger because there's lots of B and C connectors on it. This can take any analog format possible. This was probably taken out of a TV or movie studio somewhere. It's called Extron is the brand, and it's made out of really thick steel. Could probably take a bullet. The cool thing about this one, this is probably one of the biggest ones I've been able to find, and it has 32 inputs. These are all inputs, and then 32 outputs. I have most of the inputs filled, but not quite. And then on the bottom here, I have labeled for the various CRT TVs that I've got, and then some converters, like this is the OSSC, which this will scale an analog signal to an HDMI signal, which will allow me to display it on a non-CRT TV, meaning these flat panels here. I have a few different scalers. This one's the best for gaming stuff. I have a few other ones that I use for like laser discs and things like that. So the trick here is there is a number of formats to take into account. So for example, original Nintendo composite, original Sega Genesis composite. Most of these are composite. You can get component cables, which is better. Some of them can do S-video. Ideally, what you want to do is the best quality is RGB, and many of these you can convert to RGB using cables. So that pretty much all of these can be done using cables. This one you have to mod to get to RGB. So I'll do a quick demo here. This should be turned off. We're going to do the Super Nintendo. We've got Final Fight on there. I'm going to turn this on. And so what that does is we've got our Super Nintendo here. And I'm going to send it here. Well, it's already going there, but I'll show you how it works. So let me unselect it and then reselect it. So you want to select it, then tell it where you want it to go, and then press enter. So what this does is this sends it this is an RGB signal. It's sending the RGB signal to this. This is the OSSC open source scan converter. And what this does is it picks up the RGB signal and it will convert it to HDMI. From there, it sends it into the HDMI matrix switch. So it's coming into input 12. And now I'm sending input 12 to the main screen. Actually, let's just send it to all of the screens. And there we go. We've got Final Fight for Super Nintendo on all of these screens. And I can do the same thing with pretty much any one of these here. Again, there are some caveats. Some things have to be converted uh, through various other converters to get onto the main LCD screen. And that's how that works. Another thing I can do is this is an RGB monitor. Uh, and this is, I haven't rehearsed this, but let me make sure that this works. This should be that one. So I don't have to convert this because it should be able to send, there we go, straight RGB signal directly to that TV. So I don't need to send it to a converter or anything. This is also RGB. We have the power-based converter here. So we've got Hang On, Jungle Hunt here. I'll just show you real quick. That's this one. I'm going to send it to the RGB and then pop that over there, and there we go. So that's a quick demo of how that works and how you can switch any of these consoles to whatever screen that you want them on, provided that screen will take the input you want. So for example, this one is a composite or component, so I do have a converter that will convert RGB back to component, so I can do things on that. Unfortunately, these are composite only, so those will only display composite signals. So they're a little bit limited in what they can do, but for the most part, the idea here is to get any input into any output and be able to put it wherever you want to put it. And that's how that works. I'm going to give you a little background on how this room was built. I figure it's going to be a lot more impressive when you see what we started with and then how it ended up. Even though it's not finished, it's come a long way. So I'm going to give you a little slideshow here of where we started out, and this is basically it. Um, under, I'm under my house right now. I'm sitting right here, but this is what it used to look like. You can see this is not a load-bearing wall. It's just kind of a facade, I guess. What actually is holding this up are there's steel beams on these foundation pads. So that's important because um, we're going to tear down that wall. So the what we started out with was this janky opening here. And what we also found it out after we demoed this whole thing, this once upon a time was actually open to the elements, and there was some kind of like flower bed or something under here because there's a little rock formation which you'd normally see around some kind of a flower bed. And I think there was even some sprinkler pipe run down here. So this whole house is basically a Frankenstein job. There's been a lot of things that have been changed and added on to it. So this is how I found it. And again, that was a storage room. This is what it looked like inside. It was a bunch of just scrap wood and plywood, just kind of slapped up. You can see this top, the roof part of it. This used to be open to the elements. That's why it's painted like that, because this actually used to be an outside kind of roof, and this used to be the original side of the house, and then somebody just kind of cut open a little opening so you can get to the rest of under the house here. This is open to the air. That there was a lot of critters and things that got through there, which I'll cover in a minute. So we started by taking down the ceiling here. This was full of dead rats and rat poop and old insulation. It was real gross. So we had to demo this. My buddy Joel, he's the mastermind behind this. He's got construction background and built houses for Habitat for Humanity and things like that. So he knew what he was doing. I did not. So I did my best to help him out, but it was a fun time for both of us, I think. So yeah, it was a fun project. So part of, since this is a non-load bearing wall, we decided we might as well just pull it out a little bit. And so we poured a new footing here in preparation, and that's the new footing, basically a little foundation wall for the new wall we're going to build. Demoed out this old one, framed in a new one, and you can see what my little flower bed thing here. You can see the rocks from that. So again, this used to be an outside part of the house until somebody came along and built a wall around it. So we just kind of redid that wall essentially. And you can see we also demoed out the other side. So you can see this is a hillside essentially. So it's mostly dirt over on that side. Here's another angle, and can see it's all framed in there. And then we put some weather tar paper on there. And inside, this used to be a blank wall here, but we need to be able to get to it. So we framed in a new doorway here. We also had to reroute this gas line to go above. And then I guess I should also say we also did this subfloor thing, which unfortunately had to get torn out later. I'll explain why. And this, we put insulation, kind of soundproofing insulation, just so I could blast music down here without any consequence. So that was the start of the project. And again, this was 2015 when all this was done, but it took quite a while because my friend and I had a lot of work in our regular job to do, so we only really had random weekends to work on this. So that was the beginning of it. And later we would come to find out there's a lot more work here that needed to be done. That I kind of had to wait for. And a lot of it was having to do with the house itself and kind of bigger problems. And I'll get to that next. So one of the other problems that arose during this whole process was skunks. We had a skunk den under here. There's a dirt sort of slope back behind me. Looks like it's built sort of on a hillside, and within that piece of dirt, there was an actual skunk den that I ended up finding. So I discovered not only skunks, but there was rats and mice and a whole bunch of other things. And let me tell you about that right now. So next, we've got this area here. This was the side of my house. This is the foundation wall here that you saw in some of the other pics. This is no foundation here, and then there's another foundation wall up at the top. And so this was just sort of screened off, but as you can see, it's not very good, and the critters still got through it. And you can see here, this is a skunk. Um, Luckily, it was not alive. Well, luckily or unluckily, it was not alive. The reason I found it was stinking up the entire house because it had decayed. So I had just discovered it. I want to make sure it was dead before I got any closer to it. So yeah, that was fun. And I discovered, that wasn't the only one. There was actually a lot of skunks. I had to put cameras because they usually only come out in the middle of the night. So they would wander around the garage, and I found out there was a couple dens under the house there. They also started living under that subfloor that I showed you in the previous section. Um, we had built that subfloor to kind of go over the rock formation that was in there. That turned out to be a great spot for the skunks to live. So this one that we're looking at here decided to live under there. And I put up cameras all over to kind of see where they were. And this is little guy going down through that chicken wire area, and he found his way. They always found a way to burrow around whatever kind of barrier I'd put up, and it did not matter. And they just pretty much had free run of everything all down there, and wasn't really much I could do about it. Um, so that was a problem. I didn't get skunked, but I came pretty close one time. I don't know what this guy's doing here. He's just having a good time. They're cute, but they're smelly, and I think he just peed there. It's pretty gross. So you can see, yeah, it was a problem. And this is the subfloor here, and this guy would just come out and go into his little hidey hole here, and I think he'd just sleep down there all day long, and then at night he'd come out and do skunk stuff. So that's kind of what I figured out. And there's a lot of these. Well, like I said, I never got skunked, but I came pretty close. And this was me jumping out of my skin here because I was gonna open up that subfloor and found out the skunk was right under there. Um, Luckily, he didn't spray me, but it came. He could have. He had a good shot, but he just decided to run, and so did I. So that was a rude awakening. But something had to be done about these skunks. So, as you saw in the first pictures, the foundation wasn't connected, so we ended up pouring new foundation to join all the foundation walls together. So there's a big, thick wall of concrete that's keeping all the rodents and things out. So once that got done, oh, we also, while we're at it, poured a concrete slab in here. So this, instead of having the dirt and then the subfloor above the dirt, we dug it down and put rock down and the whole thing. We hired contract. We didn't do this to come in and pour concrete slab here for the floor. So that was good. So once that was done, this became a lot more usable. But one of the crucial parts of it was the cabinets, and I'll get into that next. Meanwhile, it was time to do cabinets. I knew I wanted some kind of a cubby kind of a layout. It took me a while to kind of figure out how big they should be and how many and that the particulars of it. But once we kind of had it figured out, then it was a matter of getting some wood. Purchased some at the Home Depot, but luckily, um, I was able to get some free wood from Ubisoft of all places. So there's a little bit of video game history built into the cabinets themselves here. And what ended up happening was Joel, my friend who is helping me build this, he did some contract work for Ubisoft, and it turned out one of their trade show or event booths was made out of cabinet grade plywood with key art printed on it. I don't know why they decided to use nice plywood for this, but they did, and it turned out for my benefit because at the end of the show cycle, they were ready to just throw this stuff away, and we were able to take advantage and just take it off their hands. So I'll show you what that looked like. You can see this is the game Watch Dogs 2, and as part of that game, there was this hacker group inside the game called DeadSec, and there was key art that was kind of this sort of mashup with sort of, I guess, pulp comic type uh, imagery in there. So we had these big pieces of plywood with this art on it that we were able to cut down and use for our cabinet. This is what one of the original key arts look like. So just to give you an idea of what the original art looked like. We also got some big panels that had this main key art on it as well. And that got used in some of these cabinets as well. I kept the Golden Gate Bridge part of it. I was going to use it as sort of a display on one of the walls, but I ran out of room and space. But I still have it. I haven't cut it down yet. So that's the thing. So here's how we did it. Cut grooves into we'll cut the bottom down to size, then we cut grooves into it, fit the shelves into the grooves there. As you can see, there's another groove back here, and this is for the sort of false back, which I'll show you in a minute, but you can see that's the key art there and how it kind of laid out. We made it just so it's visible from one angle only. And so this is kind of how it's cut. Big fat grooves for the shells and then thin groove for the false back. Then we adding more layers here so that you can see this is kind of the final layout of the shelving here without the false back just yet. And this is with the false back. This is not that exact shelf, but that's one of the other ones, and you can get a feel for what we're going for here. So we're able to put this thin backer board there, cut holes in it so you can run the cabling through it. Then I ran a string of outlets so that each bay back here has its own set of outlets to plug a power strip into. And then I've got holes coming down so that I can route them all. And you can see this is part of the cover art, key art, and this is the parental advisory part of it right there. Then we also made a 19-inch equipment rack ourselves out of plywood and then mounted rails to it. And that's how that came together. And then we mounted them up in these openings in the walls here, and these are the original beams here, these dark beams, and so this is basically just open to the back of the thing. So we just bolted in these cabinets that we had made, and then I started putting stuff into it. And this is sort of a intermediary, still wasn't quite finished, but I was anxious to start putting stuff in there and kind of laying it out and figuring it out. So it was a little bit usable during this whole process. And this is me and my son. This is kind of how it looked like it sort of in between, and you can see uh, this is how it was open to the rest of under the house here, and these openings here are where we fit in the cabinets, and we just bolted them to the beams that are holding up the house basically. So there's a little walkway back behind here where I can get at all the cabling. And then I added an extra box on top here to house this TV that I found on the side of the road. And you can see it's kind of coming together a little bit better here. It's closer to what you see today. Still had this big gaping opening for that last big cabinet. And then this was the day we put that up, and that was a big wrestling match to try to fit it all in there, but it ended up fitting. You can see here's part of the Watchdogs 2 key art right here on the side. And then the last thing we had to fill out was this hole. And this is, I ended up moving all the stereo equipment to this one. You can see kind of this is, you can see the holes going through there. And this is kind of, oh, this is when I still had the subfloor there. So originally the floor would have come to right there. But we ended up changing that because of the whole skunk. So this is behind the shorter one, and that's what the cable management looks like. And then once we got the stuff in, this is a little bit of a fisheye view, so you can kind of see how it all looks laid out here. So that is how that came to be. Um, what was next was drywall, and I'll show you that. And we started putting up, the weather, the tar paper stuff, and we put some drywall over it, and then on the ceiling as well. And started to come together. And we got to mud it. I had to do this myself. This was about the time when the pandemic had hit and everybody was at home and needed something to do. So this was my project during the pandemic, was figuring out how to mud drywall. I think I did okay. It's not perfect, but it's pretty okay. I'm not a professional by any means, but it's good enough for down here. That is the rundown of the the room and how it came together. And it was a long multi-year process. I think we started in 2015, and about 2020 is when the drywall went up. So it took me 5 years to get to the point where drywall went up. And then I put Pergo after that on the flooring. And that's kind of when it was ready to sort of move in and start using it, which was just in time, for the pandemic, because I really needed a home office at that point. Um, Unfortunately, I was originally planning to do a desk down here, and I had a big plan for how I wanted the desk to look like, but I kind of ran out of time to build it. So, and I needed the home office for all the work from home kind of stuff that was going on. So I ended up just putting a folding table down here, and here we are. It's 2023 right now, and that folding table is still here. And since I'm moving, I was probably not going to end up building the desk that I wanted to be here, but that's life. Um, we'll see what happens. Uh, I think somebody else maybe can finish this project. I was also going to do face framing over all the ends of the plywood to kind of make it look like finished shelving and things like that. That's another thing I never got to. So there's a lot. Oh, I was going to put a door here too, an actual door to come in here. But there's a lot of things that never quite got there. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's definitely a lot better, a lot more usable than it started. So I'm happy about that. There you have it. Hope you like watching this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, this was never quite finished how I wanted to. I was always envious of people who had the clean, perfect, pristine, spotless, cable managed perfection of a game room with the cool lighting and all that. I've never been able to pull that off. I can keep things nice and neat for a short period of time, but as I use things, it just gets messy, and then I'll go through and I'll clean it all again, and it'll be nice and neat for a little while. But that's just not practical for me. I can't do that cool, clean, perfect, spotless look because I use it and it gets messy, and that's just what happens. So I'm gonna have to embrace the sort of rat's nest tidy hole kind of aesthetic. I've seen sort of the polar opposite, even in like cyberpunk literature, or comics or whatever. There's that corporate perfect clean aesthetic, and then there's the net runner or whatever that's in his little hole, and there's wires and stuff draped all around him. Like, that's more of kind of what I have going on here. Like it or not, that's just kind of how it is. But anyway, hope you liked it. We'll have a new game room eventually, but for now, hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. See ya.
All right, you know what? This was dumb. Dump it. Trash it. This was garbage.